So the next one I don't think is really a mistake, but I'm really excited to talk to you about this because I'm sure by now, as everyone's picking up in the podcast, I get really excited about content discussions. So, when I think you had mentioned when we talked just about how you would rethink product marketing and content and where it lives, with content marketing and supporting demand gen. And I'm so excited to hear this because I have a lot of opinions around this too. So this is going to be a great conversation. So,
well, I look forward to your opinions, Dana, seeing it across all the clients that UDG works with and all that. Because, I think, goodness, going back to when Cari and I worked together, there's no perfect model for content creation, or at least content for marketing. And so everybody's doing it a little bit differently. But so at ServiceChannel, we had, sort of the demand gen function, campaigns, digital advertising, all the rest. We had a product marketing function, and we had what we loosely called corporate marketing, which was PR and brand and design and all of that. And I was working with my counterpart on the product marketing side and saying, like, hey, here's the stuff I would love, to create awareness, ABM strategies, capture leads, all this kind of good stuff. And he'd look back at me, he's like, that's great, Mac. And here's the 42 other things that the sales team wants. And here are the 67 other things that the product team wants. And, how do we do all of this? And so I was with a product marketing team that was just stretched in too many different directions. Mm-hmm. And I ultimately wasn't getting what I needed. And so it really swapped my thinking that if I got the opportunity to, from the ground up, build my perfect marketing organization, product marketing would be exclusively focused on almost going back to the original concept of product marketing. Like, how do you describe your product and how do you tell your salespeople to sell that product? And then strip out any of the content, whether that's web copy, ebooks, webinars, etc., into a separate content marketing team that would either be, its own team or within the demand gen organization. And that really just comes down to a couple things. One, product marketers, the best product marketers I've known aren't necessarily the best content marketers. They really know how to take speeds and feeds and turn them into business value. And that's perfect for product descriptions. And that is perfect for sales enablement and first call decks and all of that good stuff. But when I'm sitting here saying, I need an ROI calculator on the website, and, or I need an article or an ebook or whatever it is to explain this thing. That's a heavy lift for a product marketing team that is sometimes on a sales call, sometimes working, trying to figure out what this new thing the product organization is building. And so if I got it to do it over, I would strip all the demand gen content away from product marketing and really say, your primary job, product marketing, is to get those sellers up to speed and get them productive.
So more on the sales enablement side than creating the different tools and tactics that they need. Yeah. I don't think you're going to get You're not going to get any disagreement from us, I would say.
Yeah. Well, I think it's so true. I mean, I see it the same way as you, Mac, because what happens is I was on a call this morning where they're like, product marketing is writing our messaging, and then we're going to take that messaging and use it in demand gen. And I'm like, no, let's not do that, because that's not the right messaging. That's not for demand gen, right? I mean, there's a place for it, but we look at it, and I think the role of product marketing and that kind of content they're producing is it's not going to turn the leads that we need to. And one of our biggest pain with our clients is, I've got too much product focused content. Well, you got too much product focused content because it's being created by your product marketers. But in a lot of organizations, they own the content budget. So it's always fascinating to me then demand gen is asking I'm asking you to create content for me. They own the budget, and then I'm not getting the right kind of content because they don't know. They're not experts in demand gen. They're not experts in that kind of messaging and the type of content that's going to convert, right? And at least at top of the funnel and middle, and maybe it starts to trickle in late stage. But even then, in the buyer's journey, the kind of late stage content we're putting out in the marketplace at that phase is still not uber product focused, right?
Well, a neat example for us to build on that is, I ventured into running, oh God, what do they call it now? It's, over the box or over the top. Basically it is television ads run through your apps. So you're watching Hulu, it's serving ads to you. ESPN serving ads to you. I can't remember. They've got a sexy name for it, but I've used various platforms. Stack Adapt was the one we used at ServiceChannel. And, we could create these wonderful audiences in Clearbit, do all of our account-based marketing, push out 30-second TV spots, and the cost was very manageable. Who's going to write that? Who's going to write that ad? Who's going to develop that TV ad?
Right.
Is it going to be your product marketing team? Maybe, but ultimately, you got 30 seconds. You are not talking about your product. Right. You've got 30 seconds to talk about. You got a problem. We've got a solution. Yes. And here's how to contact us.
Right.
And that is not going to come out of most product marketing organizations.
No, and Dana and I talk a lot, with the team about really focusing on, who we talking to, right? Understanding the buyer, what are their pain points, what are their motivators, and how do we align our unique value proposition to that, right? And if you don't have that lens of really understanding the buyer, you're going to miss it, 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, to be fair, I think product marketers need to know their buyer, and you should use the knowledge they have. But how you spin that into, look, a TV ad is 50 words, 50, to get into a 30-second TV ad. You've got no time whatsoever. You got time to grab one problem and highlight your solution, and that's about it.
Right. Right. And I think that content marketers will benefit from talking to the buyer directly, right? Because they're going to pick up, having those conversations as opposed to, we used to talk about it being water cooler talk, right? It's like, just catching what people are saying on the hallway. This is what we're going to, base our messaging on. It's like, well, maybe let's talk to the buyer. Let's get their words. Let's look at how they're talking to each other in LinkedIn groups. What's the lexicon? What's the specific things that they're saying? You're not going to get that from a product marketing team or really from the sales team or anybody else, right? You really have to go to the buyer to understand, what are the nuances in the way that they're communicating and how do you, leverage that.
Let me share a cool idea for your listeners on that. It's something so one of the things we were always very proud of at ServiceChannel is that our customers really enjoyed working with us. They liked the product. They liked our customer success organization. They liked our account management team. They just liked talking to us. They thought we brought, interesting things. And we had, because of who our stable of clients were, we just had a lot of opinions on what was going on in these various industries that we served. And so when COVID hit, we were asked basically by our customers, can you bring us together? Can you bring groups of your customers together just so we can have open dialogue? You're the only people that has the influence in the Rolodex to do it. And so we did that. But back to your point, Cari, we recorded only for internal purposes all of those conversations.
Right.
And then that was available to all the sellers, all the marketers, anybody within the organization so they could pick up on the words being used, the challenges that these organizations were facing for the benefit of both those organizations and our future customers.
Yeah.
Love it.
Well, and that's so important too, because that takes us into personas, which, we talk about all the time. They change. So what happened when COVID hit is all of the things we thought we knew about our buyers went out the door. Like, as you said, to our priorities, everything changed. And so if we're still talking to the person we thought we had, 2.5, 3 years ago, you're missing the boat. And so having something like that's like just gave all the wealth of information of how to shift, how we're talking to people, how we're going to market, all of that. That's a huge benefit.
Well, and everybody gets all excited about customer advisory boards and all of this stuff. Those programs I'm a huge believer in.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just send out an invite and say, who wants to get on the phone at 10 a.m. on a Thursday and just, here's the topic and let's talk about it. Like, how do we share ideas? And the beauty of that is, one, now you've got great internal training materials. And two, people just appreciate, particularly in times of challenge, the organization or the individual that convenes, that brings everybody together.
Yeah. And I think also being heard, right? You'll hear Dana and I talk a lot about that. People want to be heard. and,
Yeah.
giving your customers the venue to, to be heard, I think is, I love that. Very progressive of you, Mac.
Well, and marketing idea for all those listening out there, because we've been having so many conversations these last few weeks about, crap, events are gone again. What do I do? Nobody wants to drink wine with me anymore. They'd rather drink it by themselves and hide because we've all drank too much wine. And so I think, when we look at how we rethink virtual events and why does it have to be an event? Why can't it just be a discussion? Why can't it be a discussion with some customers and, hey, invite a prospect in there, let them have just a conversation and not make it about you at all? But that idea of just bringing them together is what sells them, right? I mean, that's and do a few of those and see what changes. Because I think, we have to be constantly reinventing right now. And that's a perfect way to rethink events.
And also to go even one step further is, community, this concept of community has been so big for years. But when we all think community, we think a digital community.
Right.
Yes.
And why not make it a Zoom based or even a conference call based community where every Thursday at 9 a.m. in the morning, there's just going to be this open forum and there'll be a topic and there'll be a moderator. So, and the way we did it, we always had a member of our customer success team and one of our customers as moderators. And it wasn't me, the marketer, who was, running it. So it just, there was an authenticity to it. And of course we had prospects there and all the rest, but we didn't have to get into like, oh, we got to develop a community and then we have to invest in the community.
Yep.
We just opened up a bloody Zoom meeting and it was that easy.
The therapist is in.
Yes, it's not far from the truth.
Well, but there's enough communities, right? It's like we've all on social, we're all doing this. The idea, like what we don't want, which I think is the mistake that we all make, is if it feels difficult or like a lot of work, I'm not going to participate. But I can dial into a Zoom call and have a conversation over my coffee this morning. That actually is useful to me. That adds value to my day, right? I mean, and it's not hard.
Yeah. And I think the one of the best parts of, working at an agency, Mac, and I know you know this, is you're in and out of so many companies and you're seeing how other people are doing things. And that's, really helpful. You see a client that has one challenge or issue. Oh, somebody else had this same thing. This is how they solve that. You're addressing that, right? And so you're bringing people together to kind of talk about some of the things that they're facing, and sharing that knowledge is really, really valuable.
And one of the interesting things we learned is, most marketers, at least I'm guilty of this. I'll only speak about this marketer, is like, you get so excited about personas and you get so excited about verticals and all this. You're like, I've got to find this perfect group of 10 people who all have the same background and they all went to the same school and they all have the same job title, and get those people in the room because they're the only people who know how to talk to each other. Bogus. It was to break down those walls and say, in our case, it was bring restaurants, bring retailers, bring convenience stores and gas stations, just bring them all together because yes, there'll be elements that are different, but there's more that's similar. Particularly in a time of crisis when everybody's facing something that, this common event that we all need to deal with.
And then that also gives you the opportunity to pull from that for your programs too, right? So then
100%.
you're like, oh, this person has, expertise in this area. They might want to talk about it, on a webinar or something like that, right? So, you're kind of setting the stage for your own little speakers bureau.
Yep.
And
100%.
a whole content calendar for the year, right?
We came full circle back.
Oh, we weren't gonna do an ebook on that. Let's add that to the list.
but and you're 100% right. But I will say one of the things that I think we did that was good, and I'd recommend to the listeners here, is we truly said this was confidential, and it was, and we were never going to publish any quotes. We were never going to share the material outside of ServiceChannel, et cetera. And that I think it just gave people confidence they could
say
could
what
talk
they
more
needed
openly.
to say. Yeah.
That's great.
I love it. Did you have like a name for it? Was it, branded in any way?
No, we had two of them. I couldn't quite fully break myself out of like trying to segment people into different buckets. So we had FM, facility management, FM community live, And it was, for all practical purposes, it was just a header on the email and announcing
Yeah.
a topic every week. But that went out to, the people that were in the trenches. They were the day-to-day facility managers. They were the ones responsible for keeping the stores operating. And then we had I think we called it we just called it the leadership roundtable. And that was everybody who had a VP or above title, who was probably more worried about money issues,
Right.
financing, and keeping the business afloat beyond just keeping the stores operating. And so we did separated that, and we did some light branding. Our designer did a little logo and everything like that. But for the most part, I don't think any of that was necessary. We just truly needed to. We did I guess three. We had three promotional methods. One was just a good old-fashioned email or a set of emails. Two was an in-app message. Nice thing about SaaS, that's easy to do. And then the third was just making sure that all of our customer-facing people, from support professionals to customer success people to account managers to salespeople, just knew this was coming, so they could offer it to the customers and the prospects as an additional resource that we really didn't have any stake in whatsoever. We were just trying to convene the group.
I love that.
Yeah. It's a really good idea.
Free advice for everybody here.
It's almost dumbass simple, and I will give full credit to ServiceChannel CEO Tom Biocchi for pushing me on that, because I took it the way most marketers do. I was like, take community and make it 10 times bigger. He was just like, Mac, just open up a bloody Zoom line and let everybody talk.
Let people talk. And it works.
Yeah, sometimes we overcomplicate for sure, right?
We do.